Hi, I'm Nicholas McGirr, author of The Afterlife and host for Stories in a Cemetery. You can find all my fiction works with themes of the afterlife on nicholasmcgirr.com. That's NicholasMcGirr.com. As a writer, I do research, and that research is more than likely inside a haunted location or a cemetery. Like you, I'm curious about the afterlife, and always looking for a new topic for my next book. I hope you enjoy this episode of my research as much as I did in using it for my fiction works. Let's get into today's story in the cemetery. Hey guys, welcome to episode 3, Cartomancy, or Cartomancy, however you feel your need to pronounce that. And Cartomancy is not exactly going to be a story, as I would normally tell it, or some kind of experience, from one of my investigations or research. It's more of a research project that I use for one of my books. But I wanted to bring this up just because it's super cool. There's a lot of different ways to interpret this, and I'm going to apologize ahead of time. You're going to hear a lot of puppies in the background. I actually have with me today Byron, as you guys have already heard in the past, with his his collar that he has on. But we are also dog sitting another wiener dog, and the two are playing in my office. So enjoy the sounds of two puppies playing and or whining at each other. So back to the Cartomancy. Sorry, I'm probably going to stumble over that pronunciation several times. But Cartomancy is the reading of playing cards as fortune-telling cards. And there's always been arguments, at least through the research that I found, of the origin of playing cards, whether they were used for the style of gaming, or if they were actually set up as oracle or fortune-telling cards. So, of course, when you think of fortune-telling cards, you probably think of tarot cards immediately. And that's true. That's what those cards are meant for. And each card, if you know anything about the tarot, actually has, a separate meaning. When they're placed in certain spreads, they mean different things in relation to each other. The great thing about, playing cards is that we're comfortable with them, I think is the right term. We see them as a fun gaming tool. So when you are getting a card reading that's done with playing cards, you're a little bit more susceptible to the idea that they're correct, or it's a little bit more fun rather than something a little darker like the tarot, has that perception. And I'm comfortable with both sets of cards as far as getting a reading. And I've had readings from both types of cards. And the great thing about the tarot is that there's how many different types of decks. Go to any local bookstore and they actually have a divination section with many different types of decks. So if you are learning to read the tarot, you basically find a deck that you're comfortable with. That's kind of the cool thing about it. There's the traditional Rider-Waite deck. There's there's a Gothic deck. There's a steampunk deck. There's angel decks. There's whatever kind of deck that you're comfortable with or whatever appeals to you. That's kind of the great thing about tarot, is that it's pretty diverse. But with the playing cards, I was introduced to playing cards as fortune-telling cards when I was just a small boy. How do I put this? I had a family member that read playing cards according to something that was passed down through the family, and nobody knew about it. This family member actually did a reading for me. I was probably, 9, 10, maybe 11 years old. I was fascinated by it. And with that being said, when that family member passed on, I felt compelled to research more into it and find out what it was all about. And I used it in one of my books. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it was just fascinating to me, all the different styles of readings that I could find from playing cards. To me, I was used to it. I was a kid. I was used to it as, being a game. You played poker with it. You played all kinds of different versions of poker. Other card games, of course, are used to the standard bicycle playing card deck. But with that being said, once I started researching it and I found all the different ways to read them, there's tons of them. You do some research, but of course, this would be probably the start of your research for it. But there's an old gypsy style of how to read these cards. Some people call it an oracle. oracle reading. So again, I'm reading my notes while I have two puppies on my lap. So pardon me while I make it through my notes here. But there's oracle readings, and then there are cards of destiny readings. And I'm going to reference two books today. One of them is called Cards of Destiny, and the other one's called Cards of Your Destiny. Both very interesting reads. And I will tell you that I got Cards of Destiny by Sharon Jeffers by mistake. I ordered it while I was doing my research for the book that I was writing, and I was looking for Cards of Your Destiny. So I received both books because I ended up ordering the right book later on, but I found them both just as fascinating. So that being said, there are different interpretations of these types of cards. And if you go to my blog, which I'll put in the show notes, the link to it, you will find, after all of my research, the generalized meaning of what I came up with from each of kind of putting my own thoughts and research together of what each card actually means. Now, whatever spread you use is completely up to you. There's plenty of research out there and ways to find different spreads to use for different types of things. But what I find very interesting about the Cards of Destiny book by Sharon Jeffers is that it is pertinent to your birthday. So kind of like a zodiac horoscope, it's kind of laid out in the cards. So what I'm going to do to give you an example of what this book offers is I'm going to read my card, my birth card, which is the 10 of Clubs. And guys, this is something that spoke so much to me. I actually have a tattoo of a custom 10 of Clubs style logo, something that kind of fit the rest of my tattoos. But I know that sounds kind of odd to some of you, but it was just something that really hit home when I read through all of this and went into more research while doing my book. So the 10 of Clubs is my birth date, is my birth card. There are several birthdays attached to each card. So for the 10 of Clubs, you have January 30th, February 28th, March 26th, April 24th, May 22nd, June 20th, July 18th, August 16th, September 14th, October 12th, November 10th, and December 8th. So those are all the birthdays that are attached to that specific card. And there's about the same number as I flip through the book per card. And of course, each card has kind of like its own arcana. If you're familiar with the tarot, that's pretty much the some kind of label to the card itself. As I flip through some of the other pages on the other cards, Ace of Clubs is the desire to know. The 3 of Clubs is mental creativity. 3 of Spades is creative inspiration. And with my card, it is the teacher. So lo and behold, here I am, and I'm on a podcast, and I'm not exactly teaching you guys anything. And hopefully this is just more subject matter that you just want to listen to, read about, or you're just curious. But at any rate, this is one of those things where I really dove in for the research of my book. So I'm going to go ahead and read the paragraph that goes along with my specific card, the 10 of Clubs, and kind of give you a gist of how it can relate to your life and what you could expect from something like this and going into the playing cards themselves. But this is just one way of reading into these cards. So with each of these cards, if you're doing a reading or you're getting a reading, and somebody else's card pops up, it could actually represent that person. So which makes things very interesting. So kind of combine the two different ways of reading it. So if you're not a general practitioner in one specific type of reading, you can kind of combine them, which I found very interesting. So let's see. Going into what my card actually means. The 10 of Clubs is the card of the teacher, and for the most part, that teaching is done by example in the way that you live your life. Your great integrity, for rightfulness, and innovative ways of giving are an inspiration to all. You are extremely independent, you're gifted with a powerful mind, and you can be very aggressive when you want to be. You have the ability, strength, and will to accomplish absolutely anything you set your mind to. There's a typo in here. I'm the English guy, and I found the typo. You are determined in motion. You are dependable, and you contribute selflessly to your family, friends, and community. You love to learn and acquire new knowledge and then share what you've learned with others. So there's much more to this, but it more or less goes into the personality of the person of that card. So the other thing that's very interesting is if you take the 10 of clubs and you put it into the Cards of Your Destiny book that was the book I was originally looking for, and that's by Robert Lee Camp, which also falls into the very back of it, gives you your birth card and your planetary ruling card, which is super interesting. They do line up. So February 28th, which is my birthday, says that my birth card is the 10 of clubs. So both books are in relation to each other. But what's interesting about the Cards of Your Destiny book is that you can go year by year there's a chart in the back where you can actually go in each year of your life and look up each card as to what's going to happen in the future or some guidance for the future, however you wish to look at it, and kind of take that as some advice. So it literally goes on for every year of your life, which super interesting to me, fascinating. So I'm going to I actually kind of pre-wrote the show notes / blog posts. So I'm going to flip through those notes, make sure I didn't, of course, miss anything. When it comes to relation of stuff like this, I like to just kind of give you a general gist, like stuff like this is actually out there. If you've listened to my previous 2 episodes, obviously those were some personal, experiences. But the difference with the playing cards versus tarot cards, like the biggest thing, and what really got me super interested is the relation to the regular calendar. So again, going through my notes, if you notice that there's 52 cards in a deck of regular playing cards, there's also 52 weeks in a year. The 4 suits allegedly represent the 4 different seasons. And of course, the suits have changed throughout time in the history of playing cards. But as what we know as clubs, diamonds, spades, and hearts, those all represent the different seasons of each individual year. And of course, the 13 cards in each suit obviously represent the weeks that are in each season. So that was just one aha moment for me that said, hey, you really need to look into this and see how this works and kind of play around with it and see what you can use, for your next book. So this week's book sponsor is my second book in the Crossman McKnight series, Book of Joel. And why I'm bringing that particular book up is that was the book that I used, these playing cards and the Cartomancy in. And the lead character, Joel, he's a prophet who's about to become, part of the underworld, Greek mythology's underworld, but he kind of needed some kind of ability. So as a prophet, I thought, how cool would it be if he liked to shuffle cards as kind of like a nervous twitch? And essentially, the cards mean something to him because they fall out of his hands, certain cards pop up, and it was more than just a coincidence that certain cards would pop up or fly out of his hands. So I did use Cartomancy, Cartomancy, however you want to pronounce it. I did not look it up specifically. My apologies. I know I'm the English guy. I'm supposed to know this stuff. But at any rate, I did put it inside the book. I love this book. I can't wait to write book 3 and see how it turns out. If you don't know anything about my work, I am kind of a pantser, which means that I write by the seat of my pants. I don't always plan out the plot and how everything's going to work out. I kind of let the characters do their own thing, which is what makes my work interesting. My characters kind of live and breathe on their own. I just put it in paper format or ebook format, whichever you prefer. So, guys, that's pretty much all I have for this week. I want to thank you guys for listening. If you are, relatively new, which this is only the 3rd episode, I will tell you that I'm learning more and more about podcasting, and my apologies for the break in between, but with the dog sitting and, some other things popping up in my daily 9 to 5, I was unable to get to last week's episode. So expect a little bit more consistency with these podcasts. And I cannot thank you enough for dropping by and kind of picking my brain on Cartomancy. If you know anything more about this or you have feelings about it or have experiences, I would love to hear about them. Feel free to drop by my Facebook page and let me know. That's Nicholas McGirr, author. So that's NicholasMcGirr. Or feel free to click the link in the show notes for this particular podcast, and it'll take you over to my blog. You can read a little bit more detail and actually see the chart that I came up with from the interpretations that I got from a lot of the different styles of reading playing cards. So, guys, again, can't thank you enough for listening today, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Thanks. Thanks so much for listening to today's Story in a Cemetery. Be sure to check out the show notes with pictures and bonus audio sections on nicholasmcgirr.com. As you know, I'm a writer, and now you have another story that inspires me to write my fiction works. Be sure to share this episode on your social media or leave me comments on the Stories in a Cemetery Facebook page. I'll see you next time with another Story in the Cemetery.